For parts 1 through 6, we're going to be doing it pretty simply. The first video will be row 1, row 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on and so forth. Anyway, let's begin. First and foremost, Mario. So this matchup regarding Falcon, I believe is, I would say -1 in Mario's favor. So a lot of what you're going to be doing traditionally is you're going to be relying on a combination of falling neutral airs, especially trying to land with an air 2, run up forward tilt, and drifting away with back air, along with the occasional raptor boost as your main ways of moving around in neutral. Most of what Falcon and Mario are going to be doing is you're going to be trying to specifically stay mobile enough to where if Mario does get you with some stray hit, it is relatively unlikely that they'll be able to convert it into a grab, falling up air, or falling fast fall neutral air into grab. Ultimately, you're mainly just trying to make sure that you're not necessarily trying to exclusively not get hit, but you're making sure not to get hit by the things that will lead to you just getting absolutely obliterated, as you can get destroyed off of Mario's combos in general, and it's something that can be very problematic. But our combo game on him is solid, but certainly not comparable to his on us. He can also edgeguard us pretty well, so they're mainly going to be looking for cape, down tilt at the ledge, flood, and trying to rock croc you with forward air, which is pretty effective. So usually against Mario, you want to try and recover extremely low. Recover low against them, make sure to save your double jump as long as possible, and make sure if you do blow your double jump, don't do it at a time where you're going to get flooded, because if you get knocked up like that, it'll be very easy for them to continue to shoot you with flood more, go out with cape, neutral air into neutral air, or whatever, and it's a bad time. Just don't worry about that. Negotiate space on the ground using what I talked about, and remember that Mario's combo breakers are very fast, so make sure that the combos you do have on him, you are absolutely sure are going to work, and if you aren't entirely sure they aren't, or that they will work, there's a lot of value in specifically avoiding like the aforementioned up B or nair by anticipating them to press a button and then trying to parry it. Things like that. Plus then you'll be in a great position to get parry into up tilt, into F tilt, or parry up tilt into jabs, or parry F tilt into forced tech chase, into whatever. Just stay patient, and above all else, don't get grabbed. But if you do, make sure that you DI as far away from it as possible, assuming that they're not going to be going onto a platform. If they're able to take you to a platform, you want to go straight up until they're at a point where they can no longer use their double jumps effectively to land on it. Because you have to remember that they want to use their up airs specifically at a very specific rhythm. So because of that, any way you can DI that will make them change their rhythm, even just a little bit, is quite worthwhile, and makes it that much more likely you'll be able to get out. Next up, Donkey Kong. Now this character I think we beat solidly, so I'd say it's +1 in Falcon's favor. Oh, something I forgot to mention, but the way plus and minus works in the context of matchups, to those of you who are new to the concept of matchup spreads, is if you go +1 against a character, then assuming both players are of equal skill, then you will win 1 more out of 10 than they will on average. Likewise, if it's +2, you'll win 7 for every 3 they win. If it's +8, you'll win 8 for... It's just a mathematical average used to designate how hard or easy a matchup is. So it's +1 our favor. You're going to be relying a lot on running jab, raptor boost, fishing for nair 1s, dash grab, and dash attack as your main ways of moving around in neutral. The reason for this is a lot of Donkey Kong's hitboxes are rather large, and they can be fast, but you have to remember that Donkey Kong's neutral options outside of back air and dash attack are actually pretty non-threatening against Falcon. So because of that, you want to use a lot of running around and trying to scare them into not wanting to use dash attack, so they'll feel forced to either wait and whiff punish with their own dash attack, or hit you with back airs. The more you can discourage them from being able to dash attack effectively, the more you'll be able to impose your superior movement on them and get your own combo started. Obviously both characters can combo each other quite well, but Falcon's combos on DK are significantly better than DK's on him, which says a lot because DK is a good combo game on Falcon. Make sure you learn your follow-ups. You can legitimately get 60 or more damage off of just completely normal conversions in neutral. It's kind of tragic, honestly. But that's just the DK life, especially against Falcon. With that in mind, a lot of the ways you want to be edge guarding for his recovery is you mainly have to keep in mind two different mix-ups when they're coming back with their up B. They're either going to up B and then just try to grab the ledge immediately, slash come at you and above the stage by just drifting forward the whole time, or they'll drift in place for a little bit and then come in. Basically, for most intents and purposes, you can think of covering their up B as being a 50-50. Whether it's just guessing whether they're going to come in immediately or do so with a delay. Either way, you just punish with down air. Or if they're coming high, up tilt, since it's a little bit easier to land with that, and it allows you to stay on the ledge. Either way, it doesn't really matter because spiking DK at almost any percent is going to result in a kill. It's fantastic. Keep in mind, DK can edgeguard you effectively as well, so you have to be really careful. But for the most part, you really just have to look for back airs and like down air slash down B at the ledge. Otherwise, recovering low and making sure that you use your double jump specifically when you think they're going to come off with a button into air dodge or up B or things like that is going to help you immensely in not getting killed. Otherwise, just make sure you don't panic and disadvantage, and in general, ask yourself ways you can move about after they've hit you that forces them to get a hard read in order to hit you again versus them just pressing buttons. Like jumping away from DK is usually going to be your best bet when one of his combos finishes rather than just drifting back with an aerial. Because DKs love it when you do that. They'll just run under you and then use their intangible limbs to up tilt you into more stuff and what have you. Don't play that game. Just run away from them, reset the situation, and stay patient. And you should be fine. Link is a character I think we probably go even with, although maybe down the road I wouldn't be surprised if we slightly win this matchup. How you move about specifically around boomerang, bombs, and arrows is you need to make sure that you're patient and you take the time needed to figure out how they're going to use their projectiles to control space. Like if they're using boomerang, for instance, are they drifting backwards and then throwing it at a certain angle? Are they drifting forwards and throwing it at a certain angle? Take note of the specifics of what exactly they're doing, and then ask yourself what you can do about it. Because more often than not, Falcon's game against zoners is going to be relatively similar, simply because his burst range and burst options are good enough to where most of getting around projectiles is going to be just a matter of figuring out how exactly they're going to try and keep you out at any given moment, and then just use critical thinking to try and figure out what exactly you can do to break through in that situation. But more often than not, the best way of looking at it is to ask yourself, is there anything you can do before then by anticipating it and then breaking through a dash attack, raptor boost, or what have you? Or is the best bet to whiff punish? Just ask yourself, is it best to whiff punish or is it best to do so preemptively and go from there? As for Nair, their ground tools in general, remember that a lot of Link's hitboxes are going to beat ours, even aside from projectiles. So because of this, playing a direct boxing game with Link is usually not a good idea. So, take your time, camp a little bit until you have an idea of how exactly they're going to use pretty much everything, and then just try and break those openings like I mentioned before. You can edgeguard Link pretty effectively, but make sure that if you're going to try and go off stage against him, that you rely especially on weak knee. Weak knee and down air are going to be your best tools against him. Both are incredible. Weak knee especially, as you can use it to cover up B angles, force him to recover high and then up B him, or it'll beat out his up B, slash get there before it comes out, and then you can just set it up into nair or up air or whatever. It's great. However, you have to also be very cautious of how he comes at you off stage. It's worth noting that, I'm not going to preface this, Link's edgeguarding on us is brutal. With a combination of bombs, nair, and reverse up B, it can be a nightmare to recover against this character off stage, but at the same time, it goes both ways, so that's just the matchup. Otherwise, with that in mind, make sure that you respect a lot of his sword moves on shield, as most of them are going to be fairly safe against Falcon, except when close. Assuming he doesn't nair, you can punish most of his things out of shield with up B if you anticipate it properly, because if you're not nearly frame perfect with up B out of shield, you're only going to be able to beat out the slowest of slow moves. But you can keep them fairly honest and force them to just nair and back air otherwise. Last but not least, Link can nair on your shield and then spot dodge cancel before you can shield grab him or whatever. So make sure that you try and guess what button he's going to press after landing on you with nair, rather than trying to punish the nair itself. It's just not worth it, trust me. Either way, Samus and Dark Samus next. I think these matchups are probably even. Also might be slightly our favor. Funnily enough, for some of the same reasons that Link is. So with that in mind, what you're going to be doing against Samus is mainly going to be trying to move around Zair, figure out how exactly they want to dash attack, and then use a combination of landing Nair 2, Raptor Boost on movement reads, run up forward tilt, especially downward angled forward tilt to set up reaction tech chases, coming in with back air, and occasionally Falcon Kick if you think they're going to do a missile, but only if you do it early. The reason you want to use a lot of those moves is for F tilt, it's good for having a long range option that can contest a lot of her buttons. Raptor Boost goes without us saying, Nair 2 goes without saying, so on and so forth. Most of what they're going to be doing is relying on a combination of falling with Zair, drift away F tilt, threatening charge shot and B reverse charge shot mix-ups, and then mixing it up with the occasional dash grab and dash attack to try and keep you honest. So because of this, you want to take the time needed to try and figure out how exactly they're going to set up their dash attacks or dash grabs, as everything else they do in this matchup is entirely built around how they can either dash grab or dash attack you and then set up other stuff. I'm serious. That's actually the main core of the matchup. So because of this, you want to try and play patiently to figure out how exactly they're going to use their burst options. And if you can play unpredictably in your movement in general, you can make it very risky for them to try and go for burst options, which means they'll be forced to rely on their, well, not burst options. And at that point, you can just use your superior mobility and get in. Against missiles, if you read that they're going to throw out a missile before they do, you can Falcon Kick and go through it and hit them. It's pretty great. If you think they're going to do it and you're closer, you can jump over them and do Nair 1 into combos. Or if you think they're going to drift back with Zair, you can actually go under it with Raptor Boost. So if you think they're going to land with an aerial or Zair, you generally want to use Raptor Boost. As for offstage, both characters can sometimes edgeguard each other, but I'm going to be honest, the offstage game is not too strong for either character in this matchup. Both of them are mostly going to rely on ledge trapping due to the general inefficacy of going offstage in the matchup. So just take your time. If they're low on resources, I guess threaten reverse up Bs or back air or whatever offstage, but for the most part, just try and two-frame them with down air and ledge trap. Otherwise, you should be fine, and next up is Yoshi. So this matchup, I think it's even. I doubt it's going to change in either character's favor anytime soon, because I think both characters are going to develop in ways that make them a lot better against the other over time. So this matchup is all about movement reads. Both characters can do a lot of things pretty safely against the other, but only if they know how the other is going to move around them, and then they choose a way of doing it that gets around that. But because both characters are flexible enough in their movement options, punish game, and also just how they can make slight variances in the way that they use their grounded and aerial options, it's all about movement reads, movement reads, movement reads. Above all else, don't necessarily ask yourself what buttons they're using. Ask yourself what specific buttons are they using to accommodate certain kinds of movement. Are they drifting away reliably in certain situations? Are they drifting in reliably in certain situations, holding their ground, going to the air, or whatever? If they're going to be drifting in a lot, you can often beat out those things with downward angled F tilt and Raptor Boost. If you think that they're going to be holding their ground a lot, you're usually going to want to rely on whiff punishing with run in jab, dash attack, or in the case of you being a little less confident of any particular zone of space they're going to occupy, you can use Falcon Kick, since it covers a pretty good area of space. If you think they're going to be drifting away, you usually want to go in with dash attack, but if you aren't sure that you're going to be able to get there in time, it's best to just move forward, appreciate your increase in stage control, and go from there. And likewise, if you think they're going to be going to the air a lot, you're going to want to rely on stifling that with a lot of up air juggles and trying to use up air and landing it with it to where if it hits them, they're in hit stun, but in order for it to miss, they will have to commit to an action that you might be able to Raptor Boost so that you can continue the juggle once more. It's also worth noting that for the most part, it's okay to get hit by most of Yoshi's moves as long as you don't get hit by the following. Don't get down tilted, don't get up tilted, and don't get up falling up aired. As long as you make sure not to get hit by those things in neutral and egg lay, then you're mostly going to be fine because most of his other moves aren't really going to lead into meaningful follow-ups on you. So as long as you can just move around and take the time needed to not get hit by those things and pick your openings once you have a read on their movement, you should be fine. Both characters can edgeguard each other decently, but there isn't really a guide for recovering against Yoshi or vice versa, because like I mentioned earlier, both characters can cover each other's options in so many different ways that there's mostly value in just trying to pay attention to where they position themselves and how they've played previously in the set to ask yourself how they're most likely to come after you. Seriously, both these characters are so versatile in how they can do almost anything to each other. It's an extremely even and balanced matchup. And both characters can stop each other doing pretty much anything if they get the right read. So because of that, you mostly just want to focus on when you're edge guarding them, you're going to want to try and bait out double jumps so that you can double jump over them and back air, especially if they're going to come in with like Nair or whatever, since that'll beat it out. Using up tilt at the ledge if they play around at the ledge too much, or one somewhat goofy edge guard you can actually do is if Yoshi doesn't have a double jump and they can't use up B to leap above you, you can actually just go at the ledge and hold rapid jab. Don't even let go of it. Literally just hold it, and eventually they won't be able to rise anymore with up B and air dodge. So because of that, they'll just get hit by it over and over again as you're just going ham. And then eventually they'll just fall to their death very slowly. Don't use the finish run. Literally just hold that button. It's very cheesy and situational, but it actually is pretty good against Yoshi in those situations, so I recommend it. Either way, that about sums it up for Yoshi. Up next is Kirby. So I think we win this matchup, probably +1. Definitely not bad, and a lot of the things that made it annoying in Smash 4 are all gone, so sick. With that in mind, what you're mostly going to be doing in neutral in this matchup is relying on a combination of Raptor Boost, if you have a read on them pressing a button, run up F tilt, drifting away down airs, drifting away back airs, and just dash attack. Although you don't want to use that one too much. The reason for this is, you use dash attack if you are trying to stifle them just coming in with something, but in all other cases, it's best to just take your time and camp this out. It's just not worth it. So because of that, if Kirby wants to just sit there and crouch and be like, hey, you can't hit me, well that's fine, because I'm fast, you can't hit me either. You have to remember that if you can force Kirby to approach, you can utilize the fact that you're faster, have bigger hitboxes, better range, and also more kill power. To where Kirby basically has to get reads off stage or has to get beefy up tilt combos in order to be able to keep up in the matchup, which they can, but you can realistically play a keep away and hit and run style game to where that's not really going to happen as much. You want to use the moves I mentioned earlier because all of them are going to be effective against crouching Kirby, which takes away their one real ace that they have against you if you don't know how to play around it properly. With that in mind, You mostly just want to be patient, take the openings you can, and the moment you get him in disadvantage, do not let him land. You can actually keep Kirby from landing pretty effectively by just spamming up airs. Seriously, just spam up airs. Do it. If you find yourself wondering what you should do and it's not up air, you should probably just... So because of that, just keep them in disadvantage, rack up that damage, and make sure that they don't get their combo starters on you. Otherwise, you can actually edgeguard Kirby pretty effectively by drifting away with back airs. Just be careful not to get greedy and fall into them with neutral B. Or fall into them while they're trying to suck you in and like spit you out onto the stage. As long as you don't get hit by that, or up B, or hit by their up B when you don't have a double jump, you're fine. Otherwise, getting edgeguarded by Kirby is not as scary as you might initially think. Kirby's so slow on the ground and in the air that a lot of the time they can only effectively edgeguard you if you don't read how they're going to come after you. A lot of the times you can tell exactly what options they have available to them based on their position when they're trying to edgeguard you, and then you can just not get hit by it. So take some time to really think about how exactly you can for sure get to the ledge before they can hit you in a lot of different situations, and you should be fine. Next up is Fox. Now I think this matchup was slightly Fox's favorite pre-patch, but a lot of the buffs we got in 3.1 have probably made this matchup even. I could be wrong on this, but it feels pretty even to me as long as you know what you're doing. Especially since a lot of the things we, in theory, would have made the matchup pretty even for us before, we now have, so we're good. You're going to be relying a lot on running forward tilt, landing with Nair 2, run up jab, and just dash dancing. The reason for this is, if you stay moving a lot, and you don't rely on a lot of options where you're just staying still, that takes away Fox's main avenue of getting good openings on you, which are mainly going to consist of him falling on you with an aerial of some sort. That's Fox's bread and butter in this game, and the more you can make it hard for him to guess where you're going to be at any given moment, the more that it all becomes about movement reads. Kind of like the Yoshi matchup, but it tends to be a lot more violent on both ends. This is because both characters' advantage states on each other are significantly stronger than, say, the Yoshi matchup. In lieu of their early percent combos, you usually want to just DI away from them on everything and just jump away if at all possible. Reason for this is, when they have you in disadvantage and you jump away, they're usually not going to be able to effectively chase you because you're just as fast as they are, or faster in many situations. So take your time, and take trades when you can if you're not confident you'll be able to get away. This is because our hitboxes are bigger, and if you can force trades, we can utilize the fact that we're way heavier than he is, and generally speaking, trades are almost always going to be in our favor. Otherwise, you just want to take the time needed to figure out how they're going to move so that you can punish it. If you think they're going to be frequently moving with falling aerials and you predict how they're going to fall with one, you can punish it with Raptor Boost or Dash Attack. If you think that they're just running around waiting for you to press a button that they can react to, run up Double Tap with Jab, run up F Tilt, or Raptor Boost if you think they're close enough to the ledge where they won't be able to stay grounded and avoid it. If you think they're going to be running towards you with something, you can Dash Attack, or just run away and whiff punish with your own thing. You're mainly going to be relying on these options, as almost anything else you can do has a high enough commitment to where they can reliably whiff punish you with their incredibly fast dash attack. It's best to just play extremely safe, focus on your movement, and get them off stage. When you get Fox off stage, it's worth noting that you can edgeguard him extremely well. Better than he can edgeguard you, actually, by quite a long shot, and it's the reason why I think this matchup isn't fun. It's gone from Fox's favor to even, is because of there being such a strong disparity in offstage games. So you're going to be relying on a combination of up tilt, if you think they're going to be trying to recover anywhere but the ledge, 2-framing with down air if you think they're going to be recovering at the ledge. If you think they're going to land with Firefox, you can just go out there and down air them. If you think they're going to be illusioning above the stage, but only just barely, you can actually shield it, let go of shield once they aren't able to cross you up with illusion, and then like rapid jab punish and get like 15 to 20 damage. Or you can do up B out of shield if they're at a high enough percent and just secure the kill. It's great. It's also worth noting that you can beat out their side B reliably with your up B, so if you think that they're going to try and stall out recovery while you're out there edge guarding them and then up B above, and then illusion above you, you can actually reverse up B, cover that angle, and then kill them. And it's fantastic. Take advantage of it. Otherwise, you mainly need to worry about their ledge trapping, because Fox's ledge trapping is quite strong and is going to be reliant on a combination of mainly just reacting to whatever button you push and punishing you for. So because of this, you mainly want to use a lot of very unorthodox ledge options against Fox. I recommend the following. You can let go of the ledge to act like you're going to get back on stage with a jumping aerial. Wait a moment. They'll probably try and dash attack you. And then only once you see dash attack come out do you use your double jump, up B, and then hold down so that you'll go through the ledge and grab them. This way you'll be able to rack up some damage and you're back on stage. And it will also discourage them from instant dash attacking, which is a huge deal if you can make Fox not want to dash attack the ledge. If they're going to be just sitting there doing that, another option is to do jump off the ledge into immediate air dodge down, so that you'll basically wave dash straight down onto the platform by the ledge. The reason this is good is if they try and cover your jumping option, you'll just get under it and then potentially be able to whiff punish them as they're landing. The other main things you want to be doing are double jump or let go of the ledge into double jump neutral air so that you can start your own combos if they're just sitting there. Or if you think they're just going to sit there and shield, you can just get off the let go of the ledge, double jump, and then just up B them straight up. You mainly want to be relying on these, as good Fox players will be able to punish almost everything else you can do reliably on reaction. It's just not worth it. It's better to just choose options that force them to have a hard read in order to be able to counteract. And it's also worth remembering that his options for hitting you with the ledge are not that great. So sometimes it's okay to re-grab the ledge after, say, falling off, double jumping, and then not using up B to scare them into coming too close to the ledge so that you can re-grab it again. And then when they want to come in to punish it, like roll or something like that. Otherwise, you should be fine. Next up is one of our hardest matchups. I'm not sure to what extent we lose, but there's no way in my mind this isn't a top 3 hardest matchup for us. Pikachu! In general, what you're going to be doing against Pikachu is relying on a combination of downwards angled F tilt, drift away back air, dash attack, raptor boost, and if you think they're going to quick attack, short hop down air. The reason you want to rely on short hop down air to punish quick attack is because you'll often be able to get other punishes out of it and discourage them from doing it in the first place, because a Pikachu that is freely quick attacking around you is one that is destroying you. Falcon just cannot effectively answer that move outside of down air, or like parry into F tilt or something. And because it starts combos, interrupts our movement, leads into kills, and is also extremely safe, it's a nuisance. Do everything you can to discourage them from freely quick attacking. Otherwise, remember that Pikachu's pancaking makes it to where they'll reliably be able to crouch under a lot of your typical punishes just by landing on you with an aerial. So because of this, make sure that you aren't necessarily trying to immediately punish Pikachu out of shield, or rather, if they catch you in shield, just try and reset neutral and get out of there. And use shield a lot less than you would in most matchups, because Pikachu can basically just do whatever he wants in front of your shield, and there's really very little you can do about it unless you get like a parry, or they make an obvious mistake, / you get a hard read. So because of this, you mainly want to be discouraging them from quick attacking, and then just trying to outrange them with F tilt and force reaction tech chases and other stuff. We can actually get decent combos on Pikachu, but make sure that you learn them effectively, because good Pikachu players will occasionally thunder out of them to where they'll be able to start their own combos if you miss something and use it as a frame 1 combo breaker. It doesn't come immediately, but it is something that can work, and make sure that the combos you learn on Pikachu are frame tight accordingly. Otherwise, you just want to make sure to use those moves I mentioned earlier, as they're going to be your main way of hitting a tiny Pikachu that is going to be, that pretty much all of your other moves are just going to whiff. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to edgeguard Pikachu effectively outside of them being hopelessly far off stage without a double jump. So because of that, you mostly just want to try and up tilt them if they're going to recover high, or 2-frame downer them if they recover at the ledge, and ledge trap them if you don't. That's kind of it, honestly. It's not really worth trying to do other things against Pikachu because the threat of getting reversal is too high, and the chance of you actually being rewarded effectively for your troubles is too low to compensate. Otherwise, you have to just try and not get edgeguarded by Pikachu. The way that's going to work is, for the most part, Pikachu can kill you off of almost anything if they get a good read. They can kill you with down air, they can kill you with down B setups, they can just get you with aerials. For the most part, just try and pay attention to their current position and ask yourself, how many options can they cover in their current position? And which ones can they not? Take the time to really think about this on paper so you can figure out as many situations as possible where Pikachu just cannot cover X option or whatever. The reason this is so important is you don't really want to play a guessing game with Pikachu's recovery or edgeguarding options, because if they guess right, you die, and then if you guess wrong, you get virtually nothing in return. It's better to just not even play the guessing game whenever possible and know which situations they flat out cannot cover. So really study your offstage options against this character. It's very important. Otherwise, if you're going to recover high, make sure that you try and bait out their down B and then like double jump air dodge past it, for instance, so that you can get past safely. And otherwise, just make sure not to get excessively downbeat at the ledge when they're trying to get back on stage. Although, if you read that a Pikachu is going to get greedy and reliably go for down Bs below the ledge, you can just short hop air dodge through it and then whiff punish with down air before they can actually react or press any buttons. So you can actually get free kills sometimes if you think they're going to get a little overzealous with their fall off ledge down Bs. So that's something to take advantage of. Next up is Luigi. So this matchup is probably a little in Luigi's favor, or even. Probably Luigi's favor though, by just a little bit. This is an extremely simple matchup, but an annoying one nonetheless. The reason for it is quite simple. Very little of Luigi's neutral game has to be effectively respected. Except for grab. And grab, I'm just going to be honest, he can reliably zero death you off of grab at 0, and there's not going to be much you can do about it. So instead of trying to reliably DI in any certain way, what I would just recommend doing is just try to DI as differently as possible pretty much every time he grabs you, unless you're at percents where there's an obvious kill at like, suppose he down throws you at like 90 or whatever, don't DI down and in so he can back air you. Outside of situations like that, you pretty much just want to DI super randomly and just make it really hard for them to, I guess, accommodate for your DI differences and combo you effectively. You have to remember that with perfect execution and they grab you, you're probably going to die. So you want to make it as hard as possible for them to have perfect execution by just DIing and SDIing as randomly as you can. Assuming you don't get grabbed, sick. You're mainly going to want to rely on a combination of run-up Raptor Boost, run-up Jab, Dash Attack, and Nair 2 into Raptor Boost as your main ways of getting in. You don't really want to do much else because if it backfires, you're just going to get dash grabbed on reaction and then die. You can body Luigi off stage and he can somewhat edgeguard you, but for the most part, we pretty much just either go even with or lose this matchup literally just because of his grab combos and them just being so brutally strong than us. If he tries to recover with side B, you can actually you can go in front of it to where if he's basically level with the ledge and you just run in front of him, even if you don't hit him, the fact that he'll hit you and you won't die means that he'll have to side B again and then he'll be too low to be able to up B back to the ledge. So that's one thing you can do pretty reliably. Otherwise, just go out there and edgeguard him. He won't be able to effectively reversal you in 90 plus percentage of situations, just go out there, go ham, and make sure he never gets back. I can see this matchup becoming fairly even down the road though. Something else that's kind of annoying is that he's going to use the invincibility on down B to break out of a lot of your combos. So if you're not absolutely sure beyond a shadow of a doubt that something's going to true combo to something else, there's a lot of value in just waiting for him to down B or fall with Nair so that you can just whiff punish it. Just take the damage you can, move out of the way, and then whiff punish with dash attack for Nair, or I guess just going in with an aerial if they're doing down B. Either way, that should cover that. On to Ness. I think this matchup's pretty even, I would say. So from here, this matchup is mostly going to be about figuring out how exactly they want to do their landings, whether it's mixing up with side magnet or just landing flat out with an aerial. Because of this, they're mostly going to be mixing up their landings as a way of making you discouraged from moving forward so they can get just close enough to you to where they'll be able to effectively dash attack and cover a lot of space, or come in with forward air and cover a lot of space. So your main goal is to discourage that from happening by effectively punishing their landings and making them scared to be near you. Both characters can actually pretty effectively scare the other into not wanting to be near them, so it's really just a matter of making sure that you're up in the psychological game at any given moment, as both characters have a lot of very similar stuff on each other despite being so fundamentally different. I guess the way their tools translate in the context of this matchup leads to them doing a lot of very similar things against each other. Both characters can also brutally edgeguard each other. For Ness, it's a little more obvious because he's going to just PK Thunder and PK Fire. For us, we're mainly going to be relying on just going out there with aerials. If you think they're going to recover at the ledge, you go for 2-frame down air, down tilt, or if they're going to up B into the ledge, you can just go out there and just hit them with down air before it happens. Neutral air, weak knee into neutral air, or if you go out that far with them to where they no longer have a double jump and they're forced to up B, you can just wait for them to up B, and then while you're down there with them, just on reaction reverse up B them, and they'll be too far to be able to come back. Or they'll be far enough to where they can up B again, but they won't have any options besides getting up B'd again, and then they just very slowly die. Otherwise, the main way you're going to be dealing with their recovery, their landing mix-ups, like I mentioned in neutral, is take the time needed to figure out when exactly they like to use magnet landing mix-ups versus just landing flat out with an aerial. Make sure you learn the tiny differences and predict which one they're going to do so that you can punish it with dash attack or raptor boost depending on your position. You're going to use dash attack and raptor boost to punish magnet landings and regular landings, but the timings for both are going to be a little bit different, and often if you go for one and they do the other, you will be the one who ends up getting punished. So make sure that you only go in with one of those when you're confident they're doing one or the other. If you're not certain, take a little bit more time to make sure you are certain for the next one that presents itself. Otherwise, you're going to want to use a lot of ambiguous movement and spot dodge, and if you think they're going to use forward air and or neutral air, forward air or a dash attack, so you can just not get hit by those things and continue to force the waiting game of, are they going to come in with a burst option right now, or are they going to land with magnet and or an aerial? Otherwise, if you get hit by, say, PK Thunder, PK Fire on the ground, if you SDI up and away and just mash on the control stick like this, and then mash jump, you'll be able to get out of it pretty reliably before he can actually hit you again. So just make sure you do that and you should be fine. Otherwise, when you're recovering against Ness, the main things you're going to want to be doing is, if they're going to throw PK Thunder at you, save your double jump as long as possible and then try and hit PK Thunder with one of your aerials. If they're trying to hit you from the front, hit it with hard knee. If they're trying to hit you from above, up air it. If they're trying to hit you from below, down air it. The reason for this is it's better to just beat it out when you can, and if you trade with it, it's usually not the biggest deal in the world. Just make sure you maintain your resources as long as possible. Also, if they up B you below the stage, you can pretty reliably ledge take wall jump and then air dodge back on stage, and before they are out of unlag, which will get you back on stage. Otherwise, you mainly just need to worry about getting hit by down smash off stage, which is admittedly a nuisance, but here's something really important. Fun fact, in order for them to hit you with down smash, if you DI away as you're coming up, then you'll actually fall out of the multi-hit, and they'll have to predict that you're going to be there at that particular moment and release it immediately in order to do that. So if you make sure that you can go to the ledge at times that they're not predicting, then you'll actually fall out of down smash, they'll release it, and then you'll be able to like up B and grab the ledge, or up B, go through the ledge and grab them, and then reset the situation. So just at all costs, figure out when they think you're going to recover, and then go to the ledge at a different time, fall out of their up B, and then get back on stage. That's usually how you're going to be doing it, and it is an absolute lifesaver against Ness. But of course, if they predict when you're going to do it and they get the timing right, you're probably just going to die. It really do be that way sometimes. It is what it is. You have to accept it. Next up, oh baby. I would argue the most fun matchup in the game. 100-0 Captain Falcon's favor. Otherwise though, you're mostly going to be relying on using your burst options and your safest grounding options, mainly dash attack, raptor boost, occasional Falcon kick, and run up F tilt and jab as a way of just moving around in neutral. Pretty much anything Falcon can do against Falcon can be unsafe under the right circumstances, so because of this, most of playing the Ditto effectively is not about necessarily performing presets of like movement choices that are going to be safe in most situations. It is about figuring out what level you think your opponent's skill is on, so that you can try and figure out how exactly they're going to try and come at you and what openings they're going to look for to punish. This matchup is mostly about getting movement reads when you want to take the initiative and win neutral yourself, or if you don't have the confidence to do that at a particular moment, figuring out what exact openings they're looking for so that you can fake them to get out of the way and then whiff punish them. A good example is if you think that they're going to be looking for you to, say, land with a full hop aerial and then whiff punish with dash attack, you could say do a full hop, land on the ground, and then just immediately run away. That way there isn't that extra ending lag, which gives you just enough time to get out of the way and then whiff punish with raptor boost, for instance. This matchup is pretty simple, honestly, with regards to the philosophy behind playing it. You're either reading their movement with one of the burst options I mentioned above, or you're figuring out what openings they look for and then trying to fake creating one so that you can punish them for coming in with it. Otherwise, it's just all about being creative, thinking of what ways you can come up with to bait them into thinking you're open and only for you not to be, and then just carrying your punish game as far as you can. Make sure that you learn your punishes on Falcon, as very few characters combo Captain Falcon as hard as Captain Falcon does. Take the time needed to really figure out what punishes are going to work, take as much guaranteed damage as you can, and then just go off stage. Funnily enough, offstage is very similar to onstage in the sense that it can be so freeform that it's all about reads and figuring out exactly what kind of skill level you think your opponent's at, and correspondingly what kind of things they're going to do to try and edgeguard you. For instance, like a lot of like normal Falcons, for instance, of like a pretty average skill level, are probably just going to do run off down air without like jumping. They're not going to wait for a moment, they're just going to run off an immediate down air. Or they might try and do high jump back air, for instance. Just try and figure out what your opponent's going to do and then ask yourself how you can get around it. There's so little is defined in advance in this matchup. Just try to be mentally aware, figure out exactly how they're going to move around, and go accordingly. Last but not least for the day is Jigglypuff. So this matchup, I think it's +1 our favor when it was even in the past game. A lot of the buffs, especially the back air buff, have made this matchup way better for us. So in this matchup, you actually want to play it pretty similarly to how you play the Kirby matchup, but with one crucial difference. their offstage is significantly more threatening than Kirby's, but their onstage is significantly less so due to their much weaker combo game. So because of this, you can afford to trade much more aggressively with Jigglypuff and go in much more aggressively against Jigglypuff than you might against Kirby due to their much weaker combo game, but at all costs, make sure that you're staying in the center of the stage. It's almost always okay to be hit by Jigglypuff as long as you're not like getting falling up air into rest at kill percents or getting off stage. Just make sure that if you're going to go for risky things, that you're going for those risky things to where if they miss, you're still in center stage to where they most likely won't be able to kill you off of it or get you in a position to where they can effectively cover your options and edge guard you. You're going to rely on downward angled running F tilt, the occasional Raptor Boost if you think they're going to be throwing out an aerial at a particular moment, dash attack, landing with Nair 2 into Raptor Boost, or drifting away with back airs and just spamming them as a camping option to discourage them from moving. You mainly want to use those as it's going to be your main way of just limiting Jigglypuff's movement options and just taking the time needed to try and figure out when they're going to crouch and when they're going to come in. If you think that they're going to press an immediate button because their buttons are generally weak, you can Raptor Boost through most of them pretty reliably. So for the most part, you're just going to try and figure out when they're going to want to crouch and or shield so that you know when not to go in, and just basically engage a Mexican standoff in those moments where neither of you are really doing anything, but it's okay, you don't have to. And usually, generally speaking, whoever acts first in those situations is going to lose the interaction. So just be patient, accept that playing lame is something you have to do a lot in this matchup because that's just how it be, and go from there. Otherwise, you mainly want to recover against Jigglypuff very low, and try and recover as much against the stage as possible so that Jigglypuff is forced to try and stage spike you. Because for the most part, Jigglypuff won't be able to really mix up how they can stage spike you, so you'll be able to tech most of their stuff they can do pretty reliably. Just make sure that you're not getting hit before you get close to the underbelly of the stage so that you can tech off of it and get back on stage. It's okay to be in situations where you could die at any % off of a stage spike. Just make sure that you master your techs so that you'll be good to go in that regard. Otherwise, just be patient, and if you think they're going to stay in place with a movement read or stay in place, you can actually downer them pretty effectively and it will lead into a lot of combos as well. You can also edgeguard Jigglypuff somewhat effectively. If you think they're going to recover low, you can just go down there and footstool them pretty effectively, and it will limit their options so that they're forced to either, one, air dodge back on stage so that you can downer them back down, footstool them again, or if they're going to recover higher up, you can cover that with up tilt or back airs. And that's mainly it. Your hitboxes are generally going to beat theirs, so as long as you know when they're going to come in, you're going to be able to beat them out pretty reliably. Either way, that pretty much covers everything for part 1 of the video series. Hope you guys found that useful. If not, well, there are 5 more parts to go. Maybe you'll find one of them useful because it's actually relevant to one of your characters. If you really like the video, feel free to like and subscribe. And if you really like my content for whatever reason, maybe hit that notifications button so that you get them when my videos go live. Have a good night. See you in part 2.